Forget what happened in the regular season. The Eagles are back in the playoffs with a golden opportunity to knock out the NFC North champion Chicago Bears. This is it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. I'm Chris McPherson, joined alongside Fran Duffy as the Eagles are in Chicago to take on the Bears in this wild card showdown. It is a monster matchup right here as the Eagles are the defending champions, but had to win 5 of their final 6 games and get a little help from the Bears to make it back into the playoffs. Fran, meanwhile, the Bears, they went from worst to first in the NFC North as first-year head coach Matt Nagy guided the way.
Yeah, and one of the best stories in football. And I am juiced for this matchup, C-Mac. I can't wait to see how both of these teams try to match up on both sides of the ball. And we've got some late-breaking news here just before the show that really kind of spin the conversation a different way. We'll get to that a little bit later.
All right, we're going to explain how the Eagles can win this matchup today. And if they do win, they will take on the New Orleans Saints in the divisional round. But first, let's get to today's showdown. Let's look at Nick Foles and the job that he's done with the offense going against the #1 ranked defense today in the Bears. For me, the top priority is protecting the quarterback.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing here if you're the Eagles, is you cannot get behind the sticks. We've harped on this all week long. You have to have success on first and second down. Do not let Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Leonard Floyd, the rest of that Chicago front pin their ears back and go. You have got to make sure that you are in third and manageable situations. Make things a little bit more well-defined for Nick Foles. Don't let those guys just feast and get upfield.
The game plan is going to be very fascinating because the Eagles last season on the way to the Super Bowl faced some top-ranked defenses. They faced Denver, they faced Minnesota in the NFC Championship game. And you look at the offensive outputs in those games, over 50 against Denver. If you remember, the stadium ran out of fireworks, out of pyro. And then against Minnesota, they put up 31 points total as a team. They had 38. So what do you think the game plan from an aggressiveness standpoint will be today from Doug Peterson?
I think it'll be to stay the course. If you're the offense going into this game, I think you've got to look at it and say, we're going to do what we do. We are not going to change our MO. We're going to stay aggressive. I don't expect them to just come out and run the same old plays. It won't be the same game plan as it was last week. You're going to see some curveballs. You're going to see some changeups from Doug Peterson and from Jim Schwartz, but you cannot go into this game scared. You've got to go in saying, this is what we do well. This is what gives us success. We're going to do what we do well.
All right, let's take a look at the starting lineup for the Eagles offense and some big news along the interior of the offensive line. Talk about protection. Isaac Seumalo is healthy, he is active, and he will start once again at left guard. An important personnel note for the Bears, All-Pro safety Eddie Jackson been sidelined with an ankle injury since Week 15. He is active, although he was limited in practice this week.
It's not often that you could say a defensive back is a playmaker or a game-changing weapon for a defense. Well, that's exactly what Eddie Jackson is. He is a game-changing player for this Bears defense. He's a threat to score anytime he touches the football, one of the best safeties in the game. So that's a big addition there for that team. But then you look over to Isaac Seumalo, not a surprising decision for me, C-Mac, because honestly, he's been a better player instead of Stefan Wisniewski. Whenever he's been healthy, he's been the better player this season.
All right, it is a homecoming of sorts for Alshon Jeffrey. Scored a touchdown against the Bears last season, was a former second-round pick of the team back in 2012. Then remember, he went on the postseason tear and set franchise records for most receiving yards and touchdowns in a single postseason. Well, in this 3-game win streak for the Eagles helped them get into the playoffs. He's had 16 catches for 301 yards and a touchdown. What has been the key to his resurgence?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just, obviously Nick Foles has given him the opportunity to go up and win. He's been so good at the catch point over the last few weeks. And then when you look at Alshon Jeffrey and you hear him speak in the locker room, all the teammates, you kind of read between the lines, they all know he's ready to have a special game here against his former team. I would expect him to have a big game here today.
Now, a couple weeks ago, Eagles against Houston Texans, Nick Foles threw for a franchise record 471 passing yards as the run game was not able to get going. Now, we watched the football games last night, and you saw Seattle lose to that other team from the NFC East, and it seemed like the Seahawks stayed with the run game a little too long, and that didn't allow Russell Wilson to get back in the game. I wonder if Doug Peterson has got that same dilemma today against this vaunted Bears defense.
I think there's a line to toe there, though, Chris, because, you look at what the LA Rams did when they played the Chicago Bears a few weeks ago. Remember, I wrote that piece, How Did the Bears Beat the LA Rams on the Road? I think when you look at the run game here for the Eagles. It's very, very important for them to continue to stay the course. The Rams got away from the run game. Todd Gurley only had 13 carries in that game. That was the lowest of any team facing the Bears all season long. Are you going to be able to run the ball with consistent success? Probably not. This is the best run defense in football, but it's important to still kind of assert yourself on the ground. I would expect the Eagles to not just run side to side, go right at this Chicago Bears defense, go right into the teeth of that defensive front, see how they can stop you.
All right, let's take a look at the Eagles defense, and for me, it starts with containing second-year quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. You know, he has a tremendous arm. He's had his shoulder injuries had to deal with this season, but really it's the legs, and we've seen mobile quarterbacks do damage against the Eagles this season. Trubisky is certainly capable of doing just that.
Yeah, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Deshaun Watson, Blake Bortles, all those guys ran for at least 40 yards against this Eagles defense. I think that that's an important note. I would expect when it's 3rd and long, if the Eagles are in man coverage, you have got to be aware of where this guy is and how he's able to break the pocket and make plays with his feet.
All right, we saw the starting lineup graphic there. You know, Eagles healthy on defense going into this matchup. Fletcher Cox coming off arguably his best month of his career, 6.5 sacks in December, reigning AFC Defensive Player of the Week. But the Bears are missing a playmaker on offense. Trey Burton, who was added to the injury report late on Saturday, he is out today with a groin injury.
Huge loss for this team. Obviously, is one of the top targeted receivers for the Chicago Bears passing game, and a big part of what they do down in the red zone. He's second on the team in red zone targets. Obviously, a matchup nightmare for defenses, and we'll get into why it's such a big matchup a little bit later. But to me, I think this is a huge loss for this Bears offense. He's got to be one of the 2 or 3 most valuable players on that team.
Now, the Bears or the Eagles will say that you got to stop the run first when it comes to the Bears, and they have a two-headed monster with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen, who really is the skill guy that the Eagles have to focus on today.
Cohen is a nightmare. To me, he is the lightning rod for this Chicago Bears offense. He's got the ability to win in so many different ways, both in the passing game and in the run game. He's got outstanding speed for the position. 4.3 guy coming out of college. He is a guy that you have got to figure out how to match up with in the passing game, and then in the run game, you know you're going to get all those different perimeter runs. He is a nightmare in the open field.
All right, so what we're going to do now is send it over to Soldier Field. Now, a little bit later on in the show, we have a one-on-one interview with defensive end Michael Bennett. But first, we're going to get into the key storylines and some bold predictions, courtesy of Eagles insider Dave Spadaro and Amy Campbell. And Dave, I'm sure first and foremost, Nick Foles knows that he must protect the ball today.
Yeah, Chris, that is my key storyline. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Good. I think the key here, obviously, is we've talked about it all week. Chicago taking the football away, leading the league in takeaways, leading the league in interceptions, ball security for Nick Foles, the ability to have patience, throw the ball away when it's not there. To me, that is the storyline of this game, how Foles and the offense handle Chicago's coverage and their pass rush.
My storyline is not about the X's and O's. It is about playoff experience, something the Eagles have, something this Bears team does not have. A young Mitchell Trubisky has not been here before, and they've had a very good season. Chicago, they're supposed to be here. There's a lot of pressure on this team. The Eagles are playing with house money right now. They're loose. You could see it in warm-ups. You could feel it on the airplane on the way here. This team is loose. They're excited to be here, and I think that experience is going to play a big factor on this playoff stage.
We shall see. There certainly is a Chicago home field advantage, not like last week in Washington.
Very different.
There are only sparkles of Eagles fans, specks here and there of midnight green. All right, how about for the bold prediction? Mine is like so beyond bold, it's crazy. And I did it before Trey Burton was ruled inactive. My bold prediction is that the Bears in the red zone manufacturing points will try Philly special, and the Eagles defense will shut them down.
I love that bold prediction. Mine is bold as well, not as creative and eagerly as that one is, but I think that the Eagles are going to be able to hold Khalil Mack away from Nick Foles. I would say no sacks for Khalil Mack. We saw what they did against other great pass rushers already this season, the Rams defensive line, the Texans defensive line. Khalil Mack is not going to touch Nick Foles today.
Woo! Well, that'll be a great thing for Jason Peters and for Lane Johnson. Mack will play both sides here. Great day for football in Chicago.
Yeah, the vibe
Light
here is
wind.
amazing.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's the crowd is into it, and it is a perfect setting for this playoff game. Chris and Fran, back to you at the NovaCare Complex.
Thank you so much, Dave and Amy. Bold predictions indeed. Now, as much, Fran, as you tried to, speaking of manufacturing a win last week in the bowl prediction column. You were shut out, like Washington was, by the Eagles, and I'm just going to go over that to mass effect that I only had one win on the entire campaign. So the Eagles' success late in the season didn't really rub off on us. So, Fran, at this point, I almost don't want you to win, but nonetheless, what bold prediction do you have that is certain to go wrong?
I will say that if you're going to know one thing about me, you'll know that I am terrible when it comes to hot takes. So it's not a shock that I'm 0 for in these bold predictions. But mine today, I go back to last year's playoff run and all the big plays the Eagles got on defense. Remember that NFC title game against that vaunted Minnesota defense? What sparked the Eagles to victory? A Patrick Robinson pick six. I'm going to say that the bold prediction here today, a defensive touchdown from the Eagles helps lead them to victory.
All right, so Darren Sproles, it's his first playoff game as an Eagle. Now, we got to go back in the time machine a little bit here for my bold prediction. It was January 3rd, 2009. It was Sproles' breakout performance as a member of the San Diego Chargers. He had 150 yards from scrimmage and another 178 yards or so as a returner, plus he scored 2 touchdowns in the win over the Colts. So for my bold prediction today, I think he will get at least 125 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown in an Eagles victory. So those are our bold predictions. Let's send it over to the Sports Radio 94 WIP booth at Soldier Field, where the Hall of Fame duo of Merrill Reese and Mike Quick will give us their players to watch.
Chris, it's a little gray, it's a little chilly, but there's no fog and there's no snow, so we are happy. And not only that, we are happy to be talking to you about an Eagles playoff game. Mike, who is your player to watch?
My guy to watch today is 91 Fletcher Cox, because I think he has to make things very difficult for Mitch Trubisky. I think they have to stop the run. And if Fletcher Cox has a big game, the Eagles can win this football game.
My guy to watch is actually my guys to watch, and that is the entire Eagles offensive line, and maybe a back, and maybe a tight end. People entrusted with keeping Khalil Mack off of Nick Foles' ribs. Khalil Mack is only the most destructive player in the National Football League. Keep him at bay. And those are our players to watch. Chris, back to you.
Thank you so much, Merrill and Mike. Let's get into a little bit of the history real quick between these two teams. The Eagles have won the last 3 matchups, including that 31-3 victory at Lincoln Financial Field last season. From a playoff standpoint, the last time these two teams faced was way back, the 2001 campaign. Donovan McNabb's homecoming. Hugh Douglas knocks out Jim Miller, calls him Shane Miller after the ball game. So some fond memories there. Now, in order to create some new good memories here, the Eagles need to get a fast start, because the Bears were one of the best first quarter teams all season long, outscoring opponents 85-38. So Doug Peterson and that opening game script really has to be on point today.
Yeah, it's a great point by you, because we know that the issues the Eagles have had offensively in the first quarter and really in the first half of games, it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the beginning of the show. You cannot get behind the sticks. Do not get behind the 8 ball in this game. Do not get into a one-dimensional territory where you're only having to throw the football. Don't make it easy for Khalil Mack and the rest of that Chicago pass rush.
Now, Dave, in his bold prediction, kind of hinted at the possibility of a trick play by the Bears, especially in the red zone. Eagles' best red zone defense in the league this season. Matt Nagy has shown, though, he will pull out all the stops.
Every game it felt like they'd have a play where it goes like, oh, what did they just do? They had 4 defensive linemen out there. You got Prince Amukamara going jet sweep motion 3 or 4 times in one play. They're willing to break out all those different kind of wrinkles. I would expect to see something like that here today for sure.
All right, let's dig deeper into some of these matchups here. We've talked about Tariq Cohen already. So who do you think is the best player for the Eagles to match up against him?
It's without question Malcolm Jenkins. This is where the Trey Burton thing comes into play, Chris, because when you look at how, okay, we're going to match up Malcolm Jenkins on Tariq Cohen, now you feel a little bit better about, oh, okay, we don't have to worry about who's on Trey Burton. You know, you may have been worried, okay, is Nigel Bradham or Jordan Hicks going to match up to Burton in space? I don't know if we really like that. Now you feel like, okay, we have the ability to match up on Ben Broniker or Adam Shaheen, whoever that other tight end is for the Chicago Bears. To me, Malcolm Jenkins versus Tariq Cohen, pivotal matchup in this game.
Let's go inside the trenches there, staying on the Eagles defense. Fletcher Cox, great matchup against a rookie in James Daniels, who was forced into the lineup because of injuries this season. Again, Cox even said himself it was the best month of his career, coming off 6.5 sacks, most of any month of his career, as well as NFC Defensive Player of the Week honors.
Daniels is a very intriguing player, very athletic player. I think the ceiling's very high for him in the future. But right now, Fletcher Cox can manhandle this guy. He can get beat with power. He can get beat with strength. That's obviously one of Fletcher Cox's best traits. I would expect Fletcher to be able to win a lot of those one-on-one matchups here today.
We've talked, Fran, a lot about Khalil Mack, but there's other players along the Bears front you have to worry about. Jason Kelce earning first-team All-Pro honors while have his hands full just diagnosing where everyone is.
Yeah, especially when you start to get into changing protections and making sure that you have guys exactly where you need them. You know, when you look at Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and the rest of that defensive front, that's why I thought it was important. Let's look at Jason Kelce versus Khalil Mack here. Are they ever going to get matched up one-on-one? It's unlikely. We might see it once or twice, but really it's going to come down to Jason Kelce putting them in good situations from a protection standpoint against that rush.
All right, we have a lot more come up here on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta, including a one-on-one interview with defensive end Michael Bennett, who explains how an altercation with a coach earlier this season was actually the turning point for him. But to watch that interview, you got to come on over to PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the app to check it out. Now, certainly, Fran, I hope this isn't our last Kickoff Show of the season, but it's been an absolute pleasure being with you week in and week out. You're the best in the business, from the work ethic, the energy, the passion you bring to your film study. Such a joy to be around to make this show a lot of fun. Again, I hope it's not the last one, but just want to give you that shout out before we go into a break here. So, all right, we're going to take our quick commercial break. Make sure to join us on the other side. 101, Michael Bennett.